All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Blazor community stand-up. This is where we discuss the latest updates and developments for .NET web developers, specifically with Blazor. So I'm Daniel Roth. I'm the product manager for ASP.NET Core and Blazor on the .NET team. And I'm joined today by several of my colleagues. We've got Javier, Ilona, and Ondrej here. You guys all want to say hello?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome, folks. So Javier is, well, actually, all three of these fine individuals are software engineers on the Blazor team, working on different parts of the stack. And today is a very special day because we're going to be talking about many of the new improvements coming in .NET 10 Preview 4, which should be released very soon. It's not quite live yet. I've been, let's see, I've got my, got the download page loaded. I've been mashing on the refresh button. Within the next, hopefully, few hours-ish, assuming everything goes smoothly, we should see a Preview 4 light up here on the download page. So keep an eye out for that. It's coming soon, hopefully later today. In the stand-up today, we're going to go through some of the new Blazor features that are now available in that release. You'll see notifications about the availability of the release, both on that download page, also on GitHub in our ASP.NET Core discussions on GitHub. As well as I think we do blog announcements these days as well, just to make sure everyone sees that the release is now live. So keep looking for that. It should be available shortly, hopefully later today, assuming everything goes smoothly. But we're going to give you an early sneak preview of some of those features right now. These are features that you'll be able to try out yourself within a short period of time. We're also going to talk about some things that are in the works, things that we're actively developing and putting into .NET 10 that will be available in future preview releases. So some of the stuff you see, we might have to wait another month or two for a future preview to actually try out. But we want to share them with you now so that we get your feedback, get your participation in the development process to make sure that we're doing the right things for .NET web developers everywhere. All right, sound great. Thank you, everyone, for joining from around the world. I see people from Denmark, from Brazil, from the UK, Sweden. Fantastic. It's great to see you all on the stream. So to kick it off, I believe we're going to start out with Ilona. Ilona is going to share with us, what do you do when some user decides to browse to some page on your app that doesn't exist or tries to access something in the database that's a resource that's not there? What do you do when one of your pages is not found in Blazor? This is an area that
exactly, Dan. That's what I was working recently on in Blazor. So it was rendering features, also redirection feature, but we'll mention it a bit later. And today specifically, we're going to explore a common web application challenge. So handling requests for resources that no longer exist. And for that, we've built a really simple movie database application that demonstrates how Navigation Manager Not Found API, that is new in our Preview 4, works for static server rendering and in global interactivity rendering. We'll also mention how upcoming previews are going to improve this experience. So let's go to the demo application. As you can see, this is just our movies list. This is the view for movie details. We have also a method where we could handle the update of our movie, and in case it won't be found in the database, we can trigger Navigation Manager Not Found. The key scenario that we're highlighting here is what happens when this user is trying to edit it, and let's say another one already deleted it from database. Okay. Let's get it started. we can choose Interstellar. We are user A that is making changes to our Interstellar movie. In the meantime, this movie gets deleted. And this is the static server rendering application. In this situation, when we submit the change, we can see that we received 404 code. This is not rendered yet. We can show you how it will look like when it's rendered in the application where interactivity is enabled. So if we did the same, this will be totally same application, just with global interactivity enabled. Sorry, this is SSR still, this is interactive.
So navigation manager not found. That's new. That's right. That's new in preview 4. So that will allow you to actually send a proper 404 response more easily, I guess, from your static server-side rendered pages.
And as you can see, we have not found rendered here. Where this not found comes from, it comes from our router, where we, oh, I still went, sorry, missed the window. This comes from our router, the fragment that we defined here, passing the parameter. In the next preview, in preview 5, we'll be also able to pass it directly as a parameter, as a name type of the page, and it will be called not found page. This you will be able to see in the new template. What P5 improvements we are also planning, because as you could see, the re-execution, the static server rendering was not able to render the 404 page. It would be possible if we triggered re-execution of the status code. And we are working on it in the next preview. What's more, the static server rendering scenario that we were showing previously, maybe I will go back to the static server. This is a scenario without streaming triggered. In case the streaming would start, we would have problems with setting not found in preview 4. These problems are solved already in preview 5. There we are able to redirect to not dash found page if this page is available in your project. But in preview 4, you will have to wait tiny bit with enabling streaming and then setting not found.
I mean, that's kind of interesting, right? Like, so like in preview 4, when you say not found, like that's going to try to set the status code to be a 404 response. But in streaming rendering, you've already started usually sending stuff, right? Like because you're streaming, so you're going in and then setting the status code at that point presumably isn't really possible. Hence, it makes sense. Like in preview 4, I think we actually probably throw an exception, I'm guessing, at that point to say, hey, you're trying to do something that won't work. In preview 5, how do we do the redirect? Is it then a client message? Like does the JavaScript then know, like, hey, the user wants to like switch to a not found page and flip over to a different page? How does that function?
No, we are adding the new URL to the streaming response, because we already started this streaming, so we are just embedding the remaining bits to get rendered to the streaming response.
Yeah, so I would say that we are still trying to figure out some of the details. It might be that in interactive scenarios, if you have a router on the page, we will just like render the not found from the router and push an update. the other alternative is that we'll push a message to the JavaScript side, and the JavaScript side in enhanced nav can decide what to do. In the end, what we try to achieve with this is that you can write the same code for your app, whether you're targeting interactive scenarios or server-side rendering scenarios, and have a consistent experience where you don't have to really be thinking about each individual render mode.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay. That sounds good. So something's still being worked through, and if people want to engage in those conversations, you can of course comment on the corresponding issues on GitHub and share your thoughts on how you think it might work. So in preview 4, then when you send not found, at least it'll set the status code, but it won't like interrupt the rendering, right? Like you'll still get whatever was that page with a 404 status code, and then in preview 5. You'll be able to potentially have the router kick in for that and render like a not found page. It sounds like there's going to be a new feature in preview 5 of actually having the router be able to point to a not found page and have that render instead. Is that correct?
Yeah, in preview 5, we are working on being able to re-execute that whenever we detect that 404 status was set. And then it might be possible to render your page. Otherwise, we don't have the renderer for that in static server rendering. I'm not sure if we would like to show also the updates to the new template that we have done in preview 5. Dan, what do you think?
I think people would love to see that. Yes. So these will be the template updates that aren't coming out today, but that we're working on for the next preview release, right? That'd be like next month, probably. Yeah, that would be great. Let's see it.
Okay, so let's.
Before we head to that, there was a question about. Well, show the template first because I think it'll be relevant to this question now that I look at it.
Okay. So we're making a global interactivity Blazor template, and I will just underline the changes. So they are pretty small. We added not found page for you so that it's easy to start off with calling not found. And what's more, here. We added this argument for router to point to our not found page to render it. What was the question connected with the template?
Yeah, so from Robson Previato, will it be possible to customize the not found page per page or type? I'm guessing this means like, if I'm on one page and I want to send a not found response, and I want it to be, not found 1.razor, and then I'm on another page and I want to send a not found response, but I want it to be not found 2.razor, different renderings of the not found experience depending on where I'm at or depending on what I'm doing.
So
I understand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand the question, but currently there is no tools for that. But I understood, Javier, that you had an idea how to do it.
Yeah, so you can do this already yourself. You essentially, the goal of us having a not found page is that you have one place that can be referenced in things that are outside of Blazor. For example, use a status codes page with re-execute. That essentially needs a path that it sets on the request, and then just re-executes the pipeline with that path. If you want to do something like showing a different page, essentially your not found page becomes a hub. You register some data in HTTP context or in a service or something like that as part of doing not found. And then within your not found page, you retrieve that data and you choose which component to render.
So you could embed the different rendering logic in say not found .razor. So within the component itself. Okay, yeah, so that would work. But if you wanted to literally just have it sort of have the router dispatch to different not found fragments or different not found pages.
That's not a thing.
Yeah, that's not. So you have to use the router as the point of customizability. Yeah. Okay. Good question. At least that's the current thinking. Feel free to raise feedback if you have thoughts on how it could be done differently. All right, cool. That's good.
When it comes to not found, we are nearly done, unless there are more questions, and we can go on to showing how navigation exception now will work in pre-rendering. What do you think?
One before we get there, we did have this question about
Sure.
this is related to the previous discussion. Even if I make a method which returns a type that you want to use, like having a not found page selector type of thing.
Yeah, so you can put whatever expression you want inside the not found page attribute, and you can have an if else.
Yep. Okay. So yeah. So that
So
value.
that's also another way of doing it per page or per route, because you can look at the current URL and say, for this URL, this type, for that URL, that type.
So that not found page equals blah expression. That just has to be an expression that returns a type, but you could have whatever.
You call a method and you provide whatever you want.
Makes sense. Great. Cool. Yep. Yeah. I think like this. Yeah. Something along the. I don't think it would be exactly that, because that's like passing in a func. But you could just call method return custom types as the expression inside the value, and that would return the type that you want to use.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. I can see that I made too many changes to the template. Now we are going to discuss another change that we introduced. It's not connected to not found anymore. So we no longer throw navigation exception during static rendering. We did it to avoid breaking into debugger. It was really ugly user experience for developers. And also we were using the navigation exception only for static server rendering. In interactive rendering, it was not the case. So actually we have inconsistency across rendering modes. I was thinking to show you how it used to work so that you can see what was wrong with the original approach, and then how it works right now. Let me just check if we are, we are on .NET 9 for sure. And let's choose the target framework. We will have to remove these not founds because they are available only in .NET 10.
That's the new stuff.
I guess that should already work. If not, then we'll think later about it. Okay, so what are we doing here? Whenever we succeeded in updating our movie, then we want to navigate away to see the full list. And we're just console logging that our update was a success. Let's do that. This was unexpected because we really did navigate. Maybe I hard-coded my database operations in such a way that I didn't remember which one to choose. So if I'm choosing the first movie, then we should return success for real. And we don't have the message logged, which is also unexpected. Because generally, navigate to should throw an exception, and because of that, our code flow is interrupted. Console write line should never be reached. What's more, if we had try catch here around navigate on success, we would just I'm sorry. That was expected. That was totally expected
Yeah.
because I just removed my try catch before I started the demo. So that was my mistake.
So some people may have noticed this behavior in like .NET 9 and earlier, where you do a navigate to with Navigation Manager, and I think in the past it would even like break into the debugger. Like
Yeah,
if you were debugging the app, you would see the navigation exception be thrown, and you'd be like, "Whoa, what happened? Is there a bug here?" You know, that type of reaction. When really it was just the framework doing that, right?
Yeah, this has been the bane of my existence because at some point we improved exception handling or debugging support for async exceptions in Visual Studio, and a lot of people started coming onto the repo saying, "Hey, my app is breaking because it's just the debugger stopping on while you're debugging." But people thought that like their app stopped working, and I had to explain a lot of people, "Hey, this is not the app stopped working. You just like press continue and things should work." But the challenge with it is not just that, is that the problem is Blazor was using an exception during server-side rendering that bubbled up into user code. So that means for triggering this navigation. So that meant, for example, if you have an error boundary or a try catch around your code, then it's going to break redirects, and it's going to break them in a way that you don't know about. What's even worse is that the behavior is already inconsistent between interactive WebAssembly, interactive server, and server-side rendering. So we are taking the plunge to fix that so that all of the three have the same behavior, and the behavior is that whatever is currently rendering synchronously will finish rendering. So the current UI screen, sort of speak, will finish rendering, and then the navigation will happen, which is what happens in WebAssembly already. Because when you change the URL, it's not up until all the JavaScript code that is currently executes that the browser switches the URL and triggers handlers and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we're seeing now that what you're talking about, like the navigation exception is actually bubbling up into user code, and Ilona is showing up in your like console output, right? And if you had actually handled that, that would have broken navigation potentially.
Yeah, the app is not redirecting anymore because the exception is being caught.
Yeah. So classic case of using exceptions for control flow. Is that right? Where
we sometimes make really bad life choices, and this was one of those.
Cool.
That's okay. So cool. Now let's upgrade.
Yeah, let's look at that.
Let's fix this.
So I would want to say for folks that this is a breaking change. We know it's a breaking change. There's an announcement for it, and there is guidance on what you need to do to update your app in case you are affected. And there's also a setting that you can switch to like get the old behavior back.
Yeah, a back compat switch. Yeah, so the break here, right, is that after calling navigate to, we would have thrown an exception, and that would have propagated up, and ideally would have caused a navigation. But the code after navigate to would not have been executed when doing static server-side rendering.
Exactly.
We're fixing the behavior of the framework to no longer use the exception, but now we will execute the code after navigate to, just like we would have if it was an interactive rendering. So the behavior is now consistent, which is good. Consistency is good, but it does mean if you made any assumptions about that code not running in your code, then you might be broken. And actually, we know that we even did this in the it's kind of funny. We sort of set up our own landmine in the Blazor identity UI. There's an identity redirect manager class that helps out with some redirect flows, and it actually had a sort of defensive exception in it. It did a navigate to and then threw an invalid operation exception to make sure that you weren't using that code in an interactive rendering mode, that you were only doing it in static server-side rendering, because in static server-side rendering, that code would not execute. So you could kind of detect it that way. But now that code runs. So if you're using the Blazor identity UI, you're going to need to do a little cleanup. It's just like removing 3 or 4 lines of code from that identity redirect manager. We will be making that change as well in our templates for .NET 10. So yeah, something to be aware of.
we'll have that documented, and we might even have an analyzer that tells you, hey, like, be careful with this, with having code after not found, because unless you really wanted to execute.
Yeah, that's totally correct. I just showed more. I was showing more or less what you were talking about at the meantime. So I think that everything is possibly clear. The exception that guys were talking about was just after our navigate to. It's really easy to find it in the template and kick it out if you really want. Yeah, and we're done here. I'm happy to hand over to the next feature.
Just a couple, one or two questions. So someone has a slightly different expectation. I don't say Scott, I guess is for your username. Just to explain how to think about this, like when you call navigation manager.navigate to, I mean, it's just a method. And so normally you would just keep executing code. Like would be the normal behavior of C#. And that actually already is the behavior if you're in an interactive render mode. Like if you're doing interactive server-side rendering, Blazor server, or you're doing interactive WebAssembly rendering or Blazor WebAssembly, that's how it works today. It was only in the static server-side rendering case that we were throwing this exception in order to be able to trigger the navigation. That's the one case where this behavior was inconsistent and that we've changed it. So
yeah, and most people don't realize this, because navigate to is typically the last thing that they call. And the thing that we might do to help you get the parent right is to maybe offer an analyzer in the future, an analyzer rule, but that's kind of it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. That was awesome. Let me I'll pop your screen off. And so next, we're going to have Ondrej, right? Ondrej's going to tell us about some JavaScript interop improvements. Is that right, Ondrej?
Yes, sure. Okay.
Fill your screen up.
So let me tell you something about the new methods that we added to the API for JavaScript interop. But first, maybe let's specify what kind of interop are we talking about, because some of you more experienced Blazor developers know that there are multiple implementations of interop. So it's not the one that was added in .NET 7, the WebAssembly specific one. It's the original JavaScript interop, which works in every mode and every deployment scenario. And it's a direction from .NET to JavaScript, right? Calling JavaScript from .NET. So in this scenario, you typically start by injecting an IJS runtime instance that you can then call methods on. Previously, the only thing that you were able to do was invoking JavaScript functions using either invoke async, which returns some sort of value, or invoke void async, which doesn't return a value. Like this already gives you a lot of flexibility, right? Because you can do basically anything. But if what you are trying to achieve is something else than just invoking actual JavaScript function, then you had to write a wrapper function. For example, if you wanted to read a value of a property or set a value of some property, you had to write a method, function on your own, like this, for example. Here I have a JS code that I have a simple get and set functions, which retrieves or updates the document title. And then I could call them using invoke void async in this case, or invoke async when getting the value, and this would work just fine. But it's a bit annoying because we are trying to do a very simple thing. So we added new methods for this case: get value async and set value async, which allows you to do this directly. So in this case, I can, for example, update the document title. I hooked it up here to some drop down. So when I select new value, you see there that it updates the document title. And here this button calls this method, which calls get value async, and then retrieves the current value of document title. And I don't need this JavaScript code anymore. Another thing that was actually not like you couldn't do it directly using JS Interop was calling constructors, or rather invoking JavaScript functions with the new operator. You again had to write some sort of wrapper, like for example here, where I have a wrapper function which creates a new chart. This is a class from, or the type from, the popular chart.js library. And this library, as do many other JavaScript libraries, has an API that where you initialize the functionality of the library by calling some sort of constructor. So now you can do it again directly from your C# code without writing the wrapper. So here we call invoke new async, which is again a new API method. We specify the name of the class, and we pass some parameters, and then again we get a chart here, which otherwise we would have to write the JavaScript wrapper for.
Happy comments about this, Ondrej. Constructors were like 80%.
Okay, I don't see them right now, but I'm happy if people are happy.
Yeah. Like 80% of their JavaScript Interop code beforehand was just dealing with the constructors, and this will apparently simplify their lives.
So there is also a NuGet package that I know that I found a while ago that only has a JS initializers whose only function is export a function to get and set properties. And I said, well, we should have done this feature like 3 releases ago.
No, there was some naming feedback. Someone suggested invoke constructor async instead of invoke new async. So a little
that's
API review feedback there.
We also had this discussion, and I guess we may change it in going into the release, because we hadn't gone through the internal API review. But I guess it's a matter of taste, right? Because invoke new. I chose at first. Sorry, go ahead, Javier.
I was going to say that constructors are not technically a thing in JavaScript. There are constructor functions essentially, and you can call any regular function with new.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say.
This is the JavaScript purist naming. Is that this is?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Okay. Then, if you have time, let me show you one more nice thing, which was a small change, but it enables new use cases or new scenarios. And this is the fact that we relax the condition on what you can get back from JavaScript when you ask for IJS object reference. Previously, it had to be an object, but now you can get references to JavaScript functions, which allows you to do, for example, what I do here. So I have a JavaScript function there, sorry, and I get a reference to it using the getValueAsync, and I ask for the object reference, and I get the reference to the function, and then I can pass it back to JavaScript, and then there it is set as a handler for for event on this chart object. So for example, if I have this chart here, you don't see it, but I'm clicking on it and nothing happens. But if I call this this update method, then first this thing is now in capital letters, but we already seen set value async in action. But it also set this function as a handler for clicking. So now I can click stuff and it does something. Obviously this demo is a bit contrived, but this enables many new scenarios. For example, someone on GitHub commented that they want to be able to dynamically set up cleaning code, or JavaScript functions that clean up some objects, and they can now do it like this. So
beautiful.
So that's it. And also, one last thing, which is kind of a implementation detail, but I've seen Christopher in the comments. So hi, Christopher. While changing this implementation, we fixed a race condition in the Interop implementation, which caused an issue while you were retrieving multiple byte arrays from JavaScript back to .NET, and now that's fixed. So if you have some sort of data intensive application which sends a lot of arrays back to .NET, now it should work in a deterministic and safe manner.
Was that a contribution from Christopher, or did he just identify the issue and we did the fix?
Christopher described the issue in great detail, and it was great. But then I found out that it's actually fixed by us changing the implementation, like a week before.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Still, thank you. Yeah. He's giving us a hands up. Thank you, Christopher, for that contribution. Issues super important, and the feedback that you all give on our preview releases, or any of our releases, honestly, helps us make the product better. So that's great. There was a question here from Daniel about, could we have something like this for the other JavaScript interop model, the one that's WebAssembly specific, the JS import export bindings? They feel like it would help there too. Has there been any thoughts or discussion on that?
Okay, I guess I let Javier answer this question, because I'm not that well versed in the other implementation.
The other model.
Sure. I mean, there has been no thought of it. It's ultimately in the end more work, and the primary JS interop model is that we want Blazor users to use, is the one that works with all Blazor render modes, which is the one we are adding features to. The other aspect of the import and export is that I believe it's more limited in capabilities. I'm not super familiar with that area, to be honest. But it might be also a good area for someone to contribute.
Maybe something we talked to Pavel about on the team.
Yeah.
Daniel, feel free to open an issue for discussion. We can chat about it on GitHub if we don't get you an answer.
Yeah, also, what I didn't show you is that all of these new APIs have a sync variant, which you get access to when you use the IJS in process runtime or the IJS in process object reference. All these sync variants are there, so you can use set value instead of set value async and so on. And if you know that you are in a WebAssembly scenario, then it's more efficient.
Makes sense.
The async variants. Yep.
So you showed JavaScript interop for properties, for calling constructors, for getting an IJS object instance from the JavaScript side, and being able to then from .NET set that as a handler. Sorry, IJS object reference from JavaScript, pull that into .NET, and then set that as a handler in JavaScript. Someone asked about doing it the opposite way. Where's the question? Can they set a .NET method as a callback method in JavaScript this way, where you want to, from the JavaScript side, say that, hey, this callback method should actually call that .NET method over there?
Well, not yet. We are thinking about it. But so that if there is interest in, streamlining that use case, then yeah.
Yeah, there are some challenges with that, with regards to holding memory and so on, that we want to be careful with.
Cool. Marina, it's great to see you on the stream today. I think Marina is one of our community triagers, or at least has been in the past, where she helps out with looking at our Blazor issues. So it's great to see you today. All right, cool. Well, that's great stuff. Cool. Anything else, Ondrej? No, then I think we are good. I will pop this off, and then I have something real quick that I will show. One last feature. I know there was a question earlier about is this just Blazor updates? And yes, today we're just showing some of the Blazor updates in .NET 10 Preview 4, not even all of them. Of course, there's tons of other stuff in .NET 10 Preview 4 that should be coming out shortly. I keep hitting refresh, not there yet. Like in aspnetcore, there's a whole bunch of new improvements. Like the new support for JSON patch using system text JSON, that's in Preview 4. Last week, I think we had our talk on the stream showing improvements to Web Application Factory for using Kestrel as the server instead of using the in-memory test server. So there's tons of other stuff. It's not just Blazor, but second Tuesday of the month is our Blazor community stand-up. So we're focusing on the Blazor items here. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. And what I want to show is some support for preloading of Blazor framework static assets. So we've been doing a lot of work in Blazor to optimize how we deliver the static files, the static web assets that make up your Blazor web applications, JavaScript files, CSS files, anything that's just a file on disk that you're trying to deliver, making that as efficient as possible using things like pre-rendering, pre-compression, so that they are compressed and as small as possible. Then we do that as part of your builds. Fingerprinting those files so they have a unique file name so we can aggressively cache them on the browser. And we've been continuing that journey in .NET 10 so that your Blazor web applications and Blazor WebAssembly applications load faster. What we've done in .NET 10 Preview 4 is enabled preloading of some of the Blazor framework static assets in your app. So what I've got here is a Blazor web app where I've turned on the interactive WebAssembly rendering. That's why we've got a client project over here in the solution. And if I go ahead and run this app, this is just the .NET 10 Preview 4 default template. I didn't have to change anything. And if we bring up the browser, what I'm going to do, there's only one page in this app that's using WebAssembly, which is the counter page. So if I go to the counter page and look at what's there, we should be able to check out the headers. And right here, if I zoom in a little bit, you see that in the response headers, when I go to the page that uses WebAssembly, you can see there's a link header being sent in the response. And what that's doing is that's telling the browser like, hey, thank you for loading. I'm giving you something to process, some page to load. But by the way, you're going to want to get this other file too as soon as you can. So go ahead and preload the .net.js basically is the file that we're preloading there. And it's got there's that fingerprint in the file name that we're generating to make sure that it's unique and can be cached. So we're preloading that file, and that avoids having to have a cascade of requests in order to load the WebAssembly parts of your app. Instead of having to load, the HTML file and then load like blazor.web.js or blazor webassembly.js, which then loads, I forget, it's like .net.js, and there's like a blazor boot.json file that gets loaded in there in the existing apps today. The sort of chain of requests, we can sort of preload some of those files as part of loading the application and make it load faster. Now, this link header that you're seeing is being sent because we're in an ASP.NET Core process. This is a Blazor web app with interactive WebAssembly rendering enabled. So we can take care of sending this link header for you. But you might wonder, okay, well, what do I do if I'm in a standalone Blazor WebAssembly app where I don't really have that server piece to produce those link headers for me? Well, we have a story for that as well. Let me shut down this app and pull up another project that I've set up here. This one is a standalone Blazor WebAssembly app. So this is basically just, the whole app is just a bunch of static files. There's no server piece when you publish this app. You have to deploy it to some server to actually to host it. But if we look at what we have going on in this app, and this is the new template in .NET 10 Preview 4. If we look at index.html, this is kind of the root page for your Blazor WebAssembly app. There's a couple of interesting things in here. So first of all, we have this link tag that we've added to the HTML header. And this is got the rel set to preload. This is actually just a placeholder. It's a placeholder that's going to be processed as part of the build or as part of publish when this app is built or published. And it's going to be replaced with an actual link tag for all the framework static web assets that we want to preload when this page gets loaded. So we should see this get adjusted when we actually run the application. A couple other things that are interesting, some other placeholders that you might not have seen before. We're adding an import map to the index.html. This has been there before, but this basically allows us to map JavaScript modules to their fingerprinted file names. So that all works seamlessly. And then way down here at the bottom, hopefully you can see this. You can see that the Blazor WebAssembly.js now has this placeholder token in its name as a place to say like, hey, when this app is built, please insert the right fingerprint here into this file name. So this is a way that you can use placeholders to sort of reference the actual generated fingerprints that will be created as part of the build. Okay, so if we run this app now, this is just a standalone Blazor WebAssembly app. It'll be hosted locally using a dev server, but when you actually deploy in production, it has to be hosted by some other server like Azure Static Web Apps or an Azure App Service. If we look at what this downloads when we browse to, let me make sure I haven't got anything cached here. Let's clear everything out because things get so nicely cached now. Okay, great. So now if I go to the network tab and we go to the counter page, we should be able to see, okay, where is counter? I can't see so much stuff. Oh, is it actually, is this, sorry, it's not. This is not a Blazor web app. This is a standalone Blazor WebAssembly app. So the whole app is interactive. So the index HTML is getting loaded at the beginning of the app. So that's this localhost request. And then if we look at the response that we're actually receiving for the index HTML, we can see that all those placeholders have now been adjusted. So up here at the top, we should now see the link preload, this guy right here. So there's the preload relationship, and that's for, we're just preloading dotnet.js basically. We can see there's our import map where we're generating the import map for all of our JavaScript modules that we load as part of this application. And then way down at the bottom, we should be able to see our Blazor WebAssembly.js file, which now has the correct fingerprint inserted into its file name. Okay, so that all that machinery that happens at build automatically, that helps your app to load quicker. Cool. All right. So that's what I had to show there. Let's see if there are any questions about that. Here's one. Okay, thanks. That was not the one I meant to click, but I think that message showed up just as I was about to click. Is link preload WebAssembly also in the new Blazor web app project for auto and WASM render modes? Yeah, so the Blazor web app that I showed was just file new project, create a Blazor web app with WebAssembly enabled. And if you did auto, the same thing happens. And then the framework takes care of sending the link headers for you. So that happens on the server. We can take care of adding those link headers to the HTTP response.
Yeah, the other thing I would say, I don't remember very well, but I believe we also do the preloading conditionally only if you have a WebAssembly component in the page when you are pre-rendering.
Yeah. Like I don't see the link headers if I'm just like on home, which is just a statically server-side rendered page. You see it once you go to the pages that are using the interactive WebAssembly.
Yeah. So that's important because we're not gonna eagerly download stuff that you're not going to be using right away.
So the question here is about, next question is about, does this help fix SEO, search engine optimization? And I don't think this really changes much with SEO. I mean, it'll load the page faster and search engines like apps. They prefer apps that are more performant. So it might help a little bit there. But the standard search engine optimization problem is just that, like with a SPA style app, a single page app style app where you're mostly just shipping a bunch of JavaScript down to the browser and then using that JavaScript to render the HTML, that just makes the lives of search engines a little bit harder to figure out what is being rendered on the page. Honestly, a lot of the search engines actually are pretty good at executing JavaScript these days, so it's not as big a deal, but you can solve that problem in Blazor by using pre-rendering. And we do this by default now in the Blazor web app template, where the first render from the server will actually go ahead and render all your components into the response. So search engines will see that immediately and be able to index off of that. Javier, sounded like you were going to say something.
Yeah, so I was going to say a couple of things. One is that Googlebot and Bingbot both use the latest version of Chrome and Edge respectively for doing crawling. I think they point that out on their public documentation. So they will execute JavaScript and do all that stuff. And then in terms of SEO, the part that it helps is with Core Web Vitals. Core Web Vitals will be better with the right preloading. And essentially you need to think of preloading as if you are not doing preloading, you are delaying rendering, essentially is what it comes down to. And you are delaying interactivity. So everything that you can preload is time that you get to do the other work that you need to do to become interactive sooner.
Yep. Cool. So there was a question here about actual numbers, like how much does this speed things up? And that's a great question. Like during development, it actually doesn't change things that much because you're just serving everything up locally. So even though you are collapsing the waterfall of requests, the requests are generally so quick because all the files are local anyway that it doesn't make a big difference during dev. So the big difference should be then during publish, where transferring those files, making those network requests adds overhead. And the further away the server is or the slower the connection, the more performance gain you will get. So if you wanted to try this out, you could try deploying like a Blazor web app with this setup to like Azure App Service, to a region that's maybe a little bit further away from you, and then compare what the .NET 9 and .NET 10 versions look like. You should see that the request chain is collapsed more in .NET 10.
Yeah, so one example is if you are visiting a page on the US from Europe, or from Europe in the US, then you're going to find 100 milliseconds latency, 200 milliseconds latency. And there used to be a cascade of like 4 requests. So that means almost a second up until we discovered all the things that until the browser discovered all the things that it had to download. And there was nothing that you could do about that. And that was delaying your rendering. So now it's only the first 100 milliseconds, because after the initial response, we tell you everything that you need to be like downloading in parallel.
Cool. One other question about pre-rendering and SEO. So search engines pre-rendered is good for dynamic content, or should we use server-side rendering for this? I mean, so static server-side rendering is basically what pre-rendering is. We basically do a static server-side rendering of what are going to eventually be interactive components. So we render them statically first, and then we set up those components for interactivity. And this creates some complexities for users, because your components really end up rendering twice as part of loading that page. You get the pre-render and then the actual interactive render. In 10, if you've in case you haven't seen some of our earlier stand-ups, we're actually doing work in .NET 10 to make pre-rendering and that dual rendering setup a little easier to manage, where we're giving you a declarative model where you can state what state you use during pre-rendering that you'd like to persist into the page along with the rendered content. So you can then reuse that state when the components get rendered interactively. And that helps avoid like flashing like effects that can happen as the components switch between the static rendering and the interactive rendering. And it also just makes things more efficient. Great. Okay, so I think that's all the questions about our new features. There were a few other questions just about general Blazor stuff that we're happy to poke into, and it's great to engage with the community on like things that are happening on the project. Someone was asking about issue 51202. It's been a long time. It's got a ton of upvotes. I don't know exactly what issue 51202 is, but I would bet that it's the lack of Interop support on the Blazor web app template. Am I right? Has anyone already looked it up?
Yeah, it says it on the name.
Yeah,
it says it on the text.
Yeah, so that issue we are very aware of. What we are working on is with our friends on the web tooling team in the Visual Studio team at Microsoft. We're working on creating scaffolders for adding Interop to Blazor web apps and really any ASP.NET Core application. And that will be built based off of the new scaffolding engine, the .NET Scaffold tool, which is a pretty nice .NET command line experience for running scaffolders in a sort of an interactive way. We had an older scaffolding system that we've used for a long time. What was it, like ASP.NET generators, something? I can't remember the exact name, but it basically required you to pass these giant lists of command line arguments anytime you wanted to use it. It wasn't very user-friendly scaffolding tool. So we have a new scaffolding engine that we're working on developing that's now available, and we're building the new Interop support based off of that scaffolding system. And then the idea is that new scaffolding system will also get wired into Visual Studio so that you can use it from Visual Studio, both by like add scaffolded item or using the like add connected service functionality that's there today that you can use for adding Interop to other aspnetcore applications, but not Blazor ones yet. So that's the plan that we're operating on. So there'll be scaffolders that you can use cross-platform, and then that will all integrate into VS, so you can get some nice tooling for setting this up. We know that setting up Interop is not super easy in a Blazor web app, especially with all the different render modes that you have to think about and how to set that up. We do have docs and samples that talk you through that. So I would direct you to the Blazor documentation. If you haven't seen that already, there is a Interop specific topic, and it has a sample that shows you the how do you do it for server WebAssembly. But there will be tooling is coming. We are working on that. Hopefully we'll have something to show for that soon in the weeks ahead. Great question. All right. Let's see what else. Are there any other plans to update the OIDC client in .NET 10 and Blazor WASM? So I think this one's about our like generic OIDC client support that we have for Blazor WebAssembly apps, and it's under the hood. It's using a JavaScript library called OIDC client.js. That library, we don't have any plans currently actually to change that. We know that library is currently not being actively maintained by the original project owners. So we are monitoring that, and if there are problems in it, we will do whatever's needed to update the library ourselves. But nothing to completely replace that implementation planned yet for .NET 10. Still on the to-do list. Great question. All right. Some questions about styling. Oh, actually, let's do this one. Well, I'll do the styling question since I mentioned it. Do we still depend on Bootstrap for our UI? Now, Blazor itself does not depend on Bootstrap. You can use whatever CSS framework you'd like. If you want to use Tailwind, Bootstrap, or whatever, your own CSS, you can absolutely do that. We do include Bootstrap in our templates just as a as a convenience. Some of our default UI, like the Blazor Identity UI, does use Bootstrap by default just to make the UI mobile friendly and those types of things. But you can of course replace the styling with something else if you'd like to. So there's no requirement to use Bootstrap. We just have been using it for a while, and so we leverage it as a convenience. If you want to use something else like Tailwind, you can. And I'm pretty sure there are sort of variants of the Blazor templates floating around in the Blazor ecosystem where they have pulled out the Bootstrap stuff and put in Tailwind instead.
Yeah, you can also use the one that uses Fluent UI.
Or Fluent UI, yeah, there's Fluent UI. So there are the Blazor Fluent UI components that will use the Microsoft Fluent UI design system. That's another option. Last question, will there be new Blazor templates in .NET 10? So there's no plans to add like a new template type. Like I know, what was it, .NET 8 was when we added the Blazor web app template, which was sort of consolidated all the different Blazor variants, except for the Blazor WebAssembly standalone project template. So we currently have two Blazor web app based templates: Blazor web app, Blazor WebAssembly standalone app, and there's no plans to change that in 10. The content of those templates is getting updated, like you saw from Ilona. Some of those updates where we're going to add, not found page and add the not found infrastructure into the template. In the Blazor WebAssembly standalone app, you saw that we're adding those placeholders so that we can correctly fingerprint assets and preload them. So there are some template content updates, but no new template planned. Same thing on the Blazor hybrid side. Like we have the .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid template, and then the .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid and web app template. Those will still be there in 10, and no plans to add additional ones. So that's the templates that we've got. There are some other templates that have come out that are based on Blazor. You may have seen the new .NET chat UI project template that was shipped out of band. It's not like in Visual Studio, but you can install it as a template pack and get access to it from Visual Studio. That is a template for building a rich AI-based chat user interface that does retrieval augmented generation to pull in data from like a bunch of PDF files and allow you to do natural language-based queries over that data. That's all based on Blazor, but it's not really a new framework level Blazor template in and of itself. So that's the plan. There's, of course, lots more that's coming in .NET 10. I know people were asking, like, what about the other stuff? There's more Blazor things, and there's more aspnetcore features, and, of course, lots of core library improvements. Keep an eye out for the upcoming announcement, hopefully later today, assuming everything goes smoothly, for the release of the .NET 10 Preview 4 release. I believe we also have an unboxing live stream planned later today where we will go through many of those new features. I think it's planned at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So tune in for that, and we'll show you some of these new features there as well. I think that's it. All right. Thank you, Javier, Ondrej, Ilona. Fantastic. Thank you for all the work that you do on Blazor, and we'll see all of you on GitHub. Thank you, folks in the Blazor community. Until next time.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.